What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another week of Daily Fantasy Golf Talk. The usual three cohorts here with you this week. Of course, I am Justin, Gibb Pollard, Brian Devonshire alongside me today. The technology has taken us for a spin over the past few days, so we're going old school. My voice is on the mend. It was terrible over the weekend. If you had the pleasure of watching anything that I was on over the weekend, I was quite squeaky, so now we just have a subtle squeak here or there, so hopefully I make it through okay. Trusty glass of water right here just in case. But the other guys do all the heavy lifting on this show anyway, so we'll bring them into the mix. Gibb, what's going on today?
Not much, mate. Squeaky voice, what, tight bonding underwear or something like that?
Too much yelling at my kids, I guess.
Oh, I know how that goes, mate.
Brian, how are you today?
I'm a little upset with you, Justin. You didn't give us a countdown, and I just dropped my bong.
I said this thing gives me like 2 seconds of warning. There's no warning here. That's okay. Nobody cares anyway. There's bigger fish to fry, like DFS possibly being illegal in New York, which is, of course, unfortunate whether you live in New York or not. New York's obviously a big state for this game, so hopefully they can right the ship there and get things going again. But it's a pretty tough day in DFS. I'm assuming you guys had both seen that before we went on the air here, but
No.
Brian, kind of your reactions to that?
I heard about it during the NBA show, and then we had this big old scramble that involved a bunch of Washington Wizards. And then I played some hockey, and then I wrote up some notes in this golf, and I haven't paid attention. Like, I don't want to know what happened.
Yeah, the New York AG just said you can't play if you live here. So DraftKings, FanDuel, please stop operating in our state. But they're not going to stop like residents of other states from playing. So if you travel to New York, apparently you still can play even if you're in the state, as long as you're not from the state, I guess is how New York is handling it. But needless to say, that DFS just can't afford to have New York go because I think DraftKings said they had 500,000 users in the state, and obviously it's going to put a big dent in the size of these games that we play. Gibb, what are your thoughts on kind of that situation here?
I grew up in a country where sports gambling's legal, and I can tell you just from the way things go, it doesn't feel like sports gambling to me. If I had to swing on one end of the pendulum, I would say it's more like Wall Street than it is like sports gambling. And so I think it's basically shit. But yeah, there's not much I can say. No one's going to be listening to a foreigner anyway.
Condolences on the rugby match, by the way. I actually watched a little bit of that.
It was a good game with 10 minutes left to go. 4-point game with 10 minutes left to go. You can't ask for a final, which happens every 4 years, to be any closer than that.
I had no understanding of what was going on when I first started watching it, but I at least picked up a little bit of it.
Yeah. All I gotta say is the concussion protocol is pretty awesome, actually. And then I found out that that's how it happens in the NFL too. So last week I did when Blaine Gabbert went out and Colin Kaepernick came back in, and found out that it was actually not the team doctors of San Francisco that was ruling him out. It was the unofficial, the third party one that was saying, "Hey, stay out for a second."
Yeah, it's still amazing at this day and age that sometimes that stuff gets skirted a little bit, but hopefully with all the recent concussions, they'll kind of take a bigger crack at that. Anyway, back to the task at hand. We're in Mexico this week for the golf tournament, and kind of a lot of travel for some of these guys that have been playing all the events in recent weeks. Some tournaments in Asia, now back in Mexico. I'll get a little bit of a break coming up here pretty soon, but we've got a short par 71 course, generally yields really low scores, especially recently, so you're probably going to see a bunch of birdies again this week. And we've got a tournament that's been going on. I think they've done this close to 10 years here. This could be like the 8th, 9th, or 10th year. Brian's got it in his notes there somewhere. 2007, so this would be the 9th year of this tournament. But not exactly a long course or a big hitters course by any means. Brian, what are your kind of anything that hit you when you were studying the course this week?
Yeah, this is a really cool course and a really cool part of the world. If you've never had a chance to head down to the Yucatan Peninsula, I totally recommend it. But it's the damn jungle, and these fairways are tight. There's even like this thing called the cenote in the middle of a fairway, and the cenote is basically like a hole in the ground that exposes subterranean rivers. So like, don't hit your ball there. This course totally rewards accuracy, and there really isn't a single hole where I want to drive it far. You know, like I'm gonna be able to get there. In as many strokes, whether I hit it far or not. The key is to keep it in the fairway. So I'm really targeting accurate players, guys that get it on the green in regulation, guys that gain strokes tee to green. Putting's pretty important always. And par 3 scoring really stands out, where par 5 scoring is usually kind of a thing. But looking at par 3 and par 4 scoring here. So yeah, this is a cool course, cool vibe down there. Playa del Carmen, Mexico. It's just outside of Acapulco, I believe. Is that the right town? I can't remember. But yeah, Bunter's Paradise.
Is Brendan Todd playing this week?
Yep.
I don't think he is.
Yeah, 7.7K.
Oh wow. I didn't even see him in the field list, but he is 7.7K. Interesting. I guess we'll get to him later.
I gotta say, I couldn't wait to hear Devo about the, I'm just going to call it a cave in the middle of the fairway. I really want his opinion and him to geek off about that a little bit more. So, yeah.
No, like I was down there last year, and these cenotes are like a sacred thing to the Mayan culture, and they're pretty cool to look at. It's just like there's no rivers because like the whole earth is just rock, and then there's just this hole with a river down there. It's crazy.
So basically, Brian Harmon, who gets many holes in one, he's probably shouldn't.
He's gonna hit it right into those. Score. Gibb, what are your thoughts? Anything else to add on the course before we get into the guys this week?
All I know, it goes from a really wind-protected area in the jungle out to the. By the end of it, you're in a peninsula, and the wind is just picking up. So you play from no wind to wind on every round, it seems like. Is that something you'd agree with, Devo?
Yeah, for sure. This course definitely meanders through the mangroves and the jungle and the beach. And so when it's on the beach, it's way more exposed to the wind. But the weather is looking kind of interesting. The wind's, 5 miles an hour in the morning, picking up to like 10 in the afternoon. But we've got a chance of thunderstorms every afternoon. And it seems like it's more likely on Friday afternoon. And with thunderstorms come those gusts. So there's nothing we can tell yet just because the forecast is so far out. But if we can pinpoint when there's going to be, a higher chance of thunderstorms, like that's not going to be the time you're going to want to be playing on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unpredictable. I mean, in Mexico, it can. It's kind of like Florida. Rain can come at any time and go. And like you said, the wind comes with those thunderstorms. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that as we get closer to Thursday. Heading into the golfers, it's a weaker field than your average tournament. The field has gotten stronger over the years, which is kind of why the scores have gotten better. If you look at the scores from 2007 through 2014, the winning score generally has gotten a little bit better. The cut line has improved in some of the years. So it's generally because the strength of the field has improved, but also it's not the strongest field in total. So when you look at the top, I mean, Matt Kuchar is probably, just in terms of name recognition, easily the most recognizable golfer in this field. You look at the second, third, and fourth highest priced guys. Patton Kaziri is a rookie. Patrick Rogers was a rookie last year, might still qualify for rookie status this year. And then Jason Bone, who really didn't burst onto the scene for a lot of people until late last year either. So Matt Kuchar, the class of the field, he's probably going to be really highly owned in GPPs, but Brian, what do you think about approaching the top golfer here?
He's definitely on top of my list, but he's priced like it. He's really got a, top 5 finish to pay off his value for what we're looking for if he's going to be highly owned. I'm not so sure how highly owned he's going to be, though, because
just because of the price, or
just because of the quality of the guys under 7K. I don't think that there's a ton of options that are going to lead people towards Kuchar, but when you're comparing them to all these other lumps in the 10K range, it's like we're used to seeing all these guys around 7K, so a little sticker shock there.
Yeah, for sure, on some of the 9 to 10K guys. Gibb, how are you approaching Kuchar this week?
he should be minimum 12.5. I think. I mean, if Rory and Spieth last week were above 12K, and there was no one under 6-1 at the bottom. There's no way Kutcher should be as low as he is. I think he's going to be heavily owned because I think there is some value in the 7K range. So if you can pick up a whole bunch of 7Ks, and there are a few 6Ks that I like as well. So definitely he's a class above the next two people. I mean, hell, even the next, the top 5 there. He is I think, in a class of his own in this tournament.
I agree.
Yeah, he's been. I mean, and he had been golfing well too. He hasn't played really since the break, so hard to tell with current form. But 6 top 10s in his last 10 starts, leading it up to the end of the wraparound.
He won the
previous
Fijian Open.
What's that?
He won the Fijian Open recently after the Tour Championship.
He played in Fiji.
Yeah.
Ah.
Strength of schedule 21. Sanderson Farms 30.
Sanderson Farms is a quality event. Don't you knock on Peter Malnati for winning that last week.
I gotta say, all these people who might be looking at Patton Kazari about winning 4th at Sanderson Farm, well, Matt Kuchar won the Fijian Open, and it wasn't that far off that much of a strength of schedule. I think Vijay Singh and Matt Kuchar made up that 21 points in that tournament. So.
Interesting about Patton Kaziri there. I read a stat this morning that I don't know whether this dates back to last season or what it is, but with his recent hot run, he's hit 47% of fairways in that span. If you're only hitting 47% of fairways at this course, you're probably not going to win. So
maybe he's going to pick a mango out and take a big bite out.
It's really hard to target him at 10-7. I mean, Rogers at 10-5. It's just those guys don't nearly have the pedigree that Kuchar has, and really it's probably a week where you just lock Kuchar in your cash games and then go with more of a Kuchar and then a couple of mid-range and some lower guys this week. Just because, all these guys in the 10K range, at least a lot of them seem overpriced. I mean, I guess you get down to Jason Bone and Harris English and Hoffman there, you can make an argument. But, I mean, do you have any interest in Patton or in Patrick Rogers, Gibb?
If I want to go contrarian, and that will be pretty low owned, I think, because I think a lot of people are going to be hesitant in paying up that much, second and third price, just for 2 guys. I mean, Patrick Rogers has a little bit more of a pedigree, at least. Patton Kazari, I mean, I was thinking about him. I was sitting there thinking, okay, 8K, 9K, yeah, cool. I might be interested, but second priced, no, thank you. I don't want to pay up that much unless I want to say, you know what? I think a lot of people are going to be thinking like I am, so I might. They might be off him, and who knows? I mean, 2 tournaments, and he has an average of 3rd over those 2 tournaments. So, yeah, if you want to go contrarian, go those 2. I think both of them should be probably priced just under Will Wilcox or Chris Stroud. That'd be a nice place for them.
All right, we go down to where you can make an argument, the Jason Bones, Harris English type of range. As you may know, Jason Bone was my kryptonite last year. I took him when he finally did bad, and I didn't take him on his huge run. I pretty much missed him every week. Unfortunately, the vibes aren't good with me and him, but Brian, I know that you kind of got to have a little bit of love for Jason Bone this week, I guess.
Jason Bone checks off all the boxes for me this week. He might be my favorite play, and if I'm not playing Kuchar, I'm definitely going to be on him. I'm trying to figure out a way to fit them both in, but that sounds tough. Just wanted to point out on Patton Kazire, or however he pronounces his last name, is that Vegas had... What is it?
His name's Maxie.
Maxie.
Didn't we go over this last time?
That's right. Maxie Patton. Vegas has him at 22-1, which... incidentally, is better than Knox, Rogers, Steele, and Bone to win this thing.
So are you saying don't play him in DFS and then go put a ticket in Vegas and hope he wins, or?
Well, either Vegas is smarter than me and I should be listening to this number, or I should be betting against Vegas. And too bad there isn't a don't on the patent, the maxi patent.
Yeah, that's the middle right there.
Right. But I just thought that was interesting. I just looked that up. That's justifies his price tag a little bit. But yeah, I love Jason Bone here. He's a course horse. Let's see here. He's got a 7th, 3rd, and 19th in the last 4 years. He took a year off. He's got really good form, 39th, 2nd, 3rd, 64th, cut 9th, and 37th. He's 15th in driving accuracy, 48th in greens and reg, 54th in strokes gained putting, 35th and 32nd in par 3 and par 4 scoring. So he's got great form, great course history, and the stats look really good for him as well. He's a great play.
Gibb, you agree on Mr. Bone?
Yeah, I do. Second best course history in the field. So, yeah, I do agree.
I'm going to put him on every team so that he crashes and burns for everyone this week. All right, let's say we're not going with Jason Bone because you're like me. You just don't have a good history with him, or you think he's going to be highly owned. You want to fade him in a tournament. Harris English, I think, is a little bit interesting. I believe he's made 15 consecutive cuts. He has a win at this event in the past. His results haven't been fantastic, but he's trending in the right direction. 23rd last week over in Asia. The $10,200 price tag is kind of what scares me on Mr. English. Gibb, any thoughts on Harris there, and do you prefer maybe anybody else just a little bit below him if you don't like English?
I like English. There's nothing wrong with going with not a defending champion, but a former champion. And it's not like he had a really sort of average CIMB Classic, but before that, he made it to the Tour Championship, which is no small feat. 19th at the BMW, 12th at the Deutsche Bank, 30th at the Barclays. So those are playoff events, and this is not a playoff event. And so he has the ability. He's shown that he can win this tournament. Granted, the field is a little bit stronger, but I don't really feel like this is a really strong field anyway. So, yeah, I think he could. I mean, what are we expecting for Harris English to make value? Top 10? Top 5? I think he can do it. I did a write-up about him this week, and his stats from the HSBC, they were encouraging. I mean, he's not really the straightest driver, but in that tournament, he was. So if he can keep the drives on the fairway, then I don't see why he's pretty good at finding greens, and he's a very strong putter. So if he can just land it in the fairway, I think he could do some damage out there.
Thoughts on Harris English there, Brian?
Well, landing in the fairway is exactly why I worry about Harris English. He's 127th in driving accuracy. If I'm pivoting off of Bond, I'm going down to Russell Knox at 10K. I think his stats fit this course much better, and he won last week over in Asia. My only concern is maybe a little jet lag coming back over. How do you guys think that the travel affects these guys?
He actually came out and said that he's tired from all the travel. Something about I think he played in some other events. I know he played in that tournament in Scotland because that's where he's from about a month ago. Then, of course, the tournament's over in Asia now, all the way back to Mexico. So he did admit that he's tired, and he's coming off a win. So it does concern me a little bit.
Travel is something that you have to sort of take with a grain of salt. How tired do you get when you're traveling first class? I've never done it before, so I don't know. But I mean, yeah, and going from China to Mexico isn't as bad as going from China all the way to the East Coast, I guess. So I don't actually have Knox highlighted to do well because it's not just coming off a win; it's a WGC event, so he's going to be pretty pumped about that. So I might end up fading him, but yeah, I don't know how to take travel sometimes because sometimes
You've got the Man of Steel right there, $100 behind him, Brian. How can you not just go with that?
Because we haven't gotten there yet. Brandon
All right.
Steele is there also, and we can also discuss Will Wilcox.
Yeah, Will Wilcox withdrew last week at the Sanderson Farms, but basically he explained it and basically in as many words said this was a crappy tournament and I didn't really care to finish playing. So he didn't, of course, say exactly that, but a lot of travel upcoming for him. It was rainy last week. They had to play the last 2 rounds on Monday, and he basically just said forget it. So I wouldn't worry about Will Wilcox. If you saw that he withdrew last week.
Withdrew after the first round at -4.
Yeah, he played well and then basically just said it was a travel-related decision. So that's how much people respect the Sanderson Farms right there.
Yeah, it's like, screw this, I'm mobile.
Wow. He got to Mexico yesterday. He tweeted a picture
Of course he
a
did.
pretty sweet room.
I thought you were going to say something else.
Well, the picture before that was his date on Halloween. And,
okay.
She looks like she's got some sweet room, too.
Hey,
But in terms of his golf game, do we like him this week? And, of course, Steele as well. Brian, I'll let you take both your boys there.
Yeah, they're my 2 boys in the 9 to 10K range. They're the only guys I'm considering in that range. And I like them both. I like Wilcox more, but yeah, I was just worrying about that withdrawal. But yeah, he looks really good for this course. And if we think he's feeling good, he's probably going to be the guy that I actually pivot off of, from Bond. I like him.
Anybody in there? I'll let you fill in kind of Steele, McDowell, Howell, Wilcox range. Boy, crazy to see Chill there at 9,700 again.
Me or Devo?
Go ahead, Gibb.
I don't mind McDowell, and I don't mind Chill. Chill missed the cut last year, but, that was his first missed cut at this tournament. He's been up and down, just like he was last year, so it does scare me a little bit. McDowell, he's only ever...
Has McDowell been playing lately, or I'm sure he's been playing overseas?
I have a little spreadsheet going at the moment where I've done everything from the Tour Championship onwards. McDowell obviously hasn't played in the PGA Tour this season, but he has played 4 events worldwide since the PGA Tour Championship, and he has an average of 27th, so it's not that great, but yeah, he hasn't missed a cut here. He's 1 of 1. He came 63rd in 2007. So, I mean, there's not much you can take away from that.
Yeah,
so,
that was the first year of the tournament. So
yeah, so he is a plotter. He is a very accurate player, and he's a great putter. So if you can hit those greens in regulation, then there's nothing saying that he can't actually be a decent option at 9,800. So a lot of people will probably be on Howe, Wilcox, Steele. So McDowell, even though he is a big name, he could be low owned. So he might be a good GPP play.
Also in that range, you have Chris Stroud at 9,300, a guy that caught my eye. He's played in this event every year. So since 2007, he's played every single year. He's got 5 top 25s. He's got 3 top 5 finishes here. It does seem like the price is a little bit high there for Stroud at 9,300, but he's also been trending in the right direction. A 10th at thefries.com, a 38th at the Shriners. I did put him in my fantasy foursome video this week, which has not dropped yet because for some reason DraftKings did not release their pricing until like late this morning. It was very strange. There was nothing out last night. Probably had something to do with the Sanderson Farms going into to Monday, so they didn't get the field finalized early Monday morning like usual. But so look for that video. I think they're going to try to post it at some point tonight. Otherwise, first thing tomorrow. But Chris Stroud's a guy I've got in there at 9,300. Not much else above 9K. We kind of see a drop-off in the pricing there. Keegan Bradley's at 9,100. And then we have one golfer at 8,800, and then we kind of get to the mid-8s. So a little bit of drop-off in pricing. Anybody that stands out to you kind of in that high 8K range, Brian?
No, this whole range just is really unexciting to me. The first guy that even pings my radar is Brendan de Jong at 8.6K. but I'm not even really excited about him. I think I'm probably going to end up with a whole bunch of guys from the 7K range. They all seem more exciting to me than any of these
Yeah,
guys in the 8K range.
and that lets you get a couple of the higher priced guys if you do that. You can still go a little bit balanced with the 7K guys and some 9 to 10K guys, or you can go up and get Kuchar and then go cheaper. But I agree. I don't see much here. Johnny Vegas, Brandon DeYoung, Keegan, Brian Harmon. Any of those guys interest you, Gibb?
I think Johnny Vegas does. I think he stripes the ball very well. His kryptonite was his putting.
4th at the Sanderson Farms, a quality event.
Okay, so we look at Patton Kazir. He came 2nd and 4th, Shriners, and at the Sanderson Farm. Well, Vegas came 10th at the Fry's and 4th at the Sanderson Farm, so it's not that terribly different from Patton. Yet Patton's up there really high, whereas Vegas is down really low, and he is going to see Dave Stockton right now about his putting. So I mean, he had the opportunity in the final round of the Sanderson Farm to win it. According to the commentators on the final round, he was striping the ball so well, and it was just his putter that was letting him down, which is sort of ironic to the point that I was trying to make, is his putting is still letting him down, but he is playing much better, and so I don't see why you can't take a risk on Vegas when he hasn't been that dissimilar from Patton, who is the 2nd highest priced player. So I like him much better than Keegan Bradley, who seems to be sort of struggling for his namesake. And a little bit of trivia is Brandon DeYoung is playing with Brandon Steele, and Brandon Steele, out of the tournaments that he's been involved with, 5 of the 6 players have made the cut when playing with Brandon Steele. So,
certainly doesn't hurt things, but kind of the Gibb random stat of the week, I guess.
I got some more random ones.
Yes.
All right, I guess I can get behind Vegas this week. It reminds me, because you said he was mashing the ball last week. Who was the golfer like about 6 months ago that bashed his hand against a sign, like a tee box sign, and had to withdraw?
Romero, wasn't it?
Andres Romero, that's it. It bothered me. I thought of that when you said that, and I couldn't think of who it was.
He's in the field too.
Is he? Well,
Yeah.
I wonder how his hand is doing. Apparently better.
But that could be a nice contrarian GPP play. I'm just saying is.
You're not talking about Romero, are you?
No, just Vegas. I mean, people in DFS world hate Vegas right now, so why not go with him?
All right, so we get to 8,500 and below. Our good friend, look at the fantasy points per game on our good buddy Alex. I can't even pronounce this one. Cheka or Ketcha, whatever it is. Had that hole-in-one a couple tournaments ago. 17th last week at the CIMB Classic. Or actually, that wasn't last week. That was a couple weeks ago. And that was 2 weeks ago. But he was the guy that was really highly owned in that event. Imagine he'll be highly owned again at 8,400. Not a guy that a lot of people know, but they see those fantasy points per game, and they can just fit him in. They're at 8,400. So I think he's a guy that's going to be highly owned this week. I don't know what to think about that. Is he a fade for you, Brian?
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of where I stand too. But I had somebody tweeted at me 2 weeks ago and said, this guy is 26% owned on DraftKings GPPs, and none of you mentioned him in the your content and whatnot this week. Are you guys hiding the picks from all of us? So we have to talk about it, because we're going to get accused of hiding the right picks if he's highly owned again. So here we are. We're having a discussion, and Gibb, I guess you tend to like him, I guess, a little bit more than most. Maybe you can speak to Mr. Ketcha a little bit.
Well, I mean, I liked him. I had him on that tournament as well, the one that obviously they're talking about. The only reason I wouldn't say about him is he's an unknown. Both of you were just really quiet. I thought I lost connection for a second.
No, I thought you lost connection when I said that.
Yeah, no, yeah, the only reason why I wouldn't have mentioned him is miscut, withdrawal, miscut. there was a certain aspect of his game which, you know, he hasn't had the best form coming into this tournament. So I don't want to say, hey, guys, go to this player because...
Is that miscut, withdraw, miscut at this event that you're talking about?
No. So Barracuda, miscut. That's a big red flag because that's not a really hard. Withdrew at the PGA Championship, Wyndham, Barclays. So you got to, you know, people should look at it from our aspect is we might really like a guy, but we might be hesitant to sort of potentially shift people towards that player when he's sort of unknown. And he's not really in great form. So my aspect of it is, hey, I liked him. I've been on him many times last year, but at the same time, I don't particularly want to say, hey, guys, go to this player who's struggling because I have a hunch. And so I might play him, but I won't say, hey, go that way, because if he fails, I'm the only person who's really negatively affected there. But if I tell people you should go there, then I'm telling people potentially go to a guy who's going to fail miserably, and I don't want people to lose money that way. So, you know, I did have him on my radar and I did play him, but at the same time I wasn't sure. When I hit submit, you know, I was sort of like, I really hope it works out, but you know what? If it doesn't, then it's just on me, and I'm not forcing or I'm not persuading other people to come down the pathway that I'm coming down. If it makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're saying you actually liked Jake last week?
Last week? No, the Shriners that I liked him. It was the Shriners that I liked him.
Well, here's why I don't like him. 113th in greens and reg, 112th in strokes gained tee to green, and 149th in strokes gained putting.
That gets a big old meh from all of us. So we just had to talk about him. It was on my bucket list.
His stats from the CIB Classic aren't there too. He's played in a tournament which doesn't track with a laser. So you're only really taking his Shriners stats into consideration. I mean,
well, I think, did you just do that? Did you sort by 2015, Brian, or 2016?
This is a weighted ranking of the last 3 years.
Okay, there you go. So that's
but
as long as you're not.
He missed 11 cuts in 2013. Form comes into it too.
I understand.
Yeah.
2013 is only about an eighth of my ranking when it's all weighted out, but that's yeah, I mean, he's just not that good of a golfer statistically, and that's what I base a lot of my stuff on. So, I mean,
and he's gonna be. I mean, he's gonna be overowned. That's if you're looking at it from a tournament perspective. I say play the fade. There's other guys that can outperform him. That's just kind of how I'm approaching it. I just figured we should talk about him this week. Other guys, lots of guys in the low 8Ks, but before we get to those guys, I was putting together my presentation for the Players Conference this week, and it's amazing the stats you can find on PGAtour.com. There's a stat that tracks 3 putts from inside of 5 feet. That's a stat. 3 putts from inside of 5 feet is a stat. In other words, the most tilting golfers on the planet. There were 3 golfers last year, the 2014-2015 season, that had 3 putts from inside of 5 feet. Do you guys want to take a crack at any of them? And it has nothing to do with what we've talked about so far. We haven't mentioned any of these guys so far on the show. I just felt like this was a time to bring it up. So, Gibb, you want to take a crack at one of the 3 putts within 5 feet, guys?
Duffner?
Ooh, that's a great guess. It actually was not him. He was not one of the 3. Brian, any good guesses on your end there?
Hideki?
Ooh, that's another pretty good guess. He was not either. The 3 golfers that 3-putted 3 times from inside of 5 feet last year were Rory Sabatini, who's not a good putter, Bo Van Pelt, and Adam Scott.
Adam Scott.
Adam Scott has his problems with the putter. Anyway, that's just I put that in a slide for my presentation just to show that you can pretty much look up anything you want. 3 putts from inside of 5 feet. I got a good chuckle going back. You can go back to 1980 on PGAtour.com. You can see all the guys that sucked with the putter in each of those years. So, anyway, Rory Sabatini was one of those guys. He's there at 8,200. Always kind of an up and down golfer because when he gets hot with the putter, he's good. When he stinks with the putter, he's terrible. But there's other guys here too: David Hearn, Johnson Wagner, Stuart Sink. Gibb, anybody kind of in this mid 8K range that you like this week?
For the longest time, I'm thinking Hearn at some point has to switch over to a short putter. I'm not sure if he's going to be doing it before January or not, but
He's holding out.
yeah, I know he's holding out, but you never know. He might, wake up on a Thursday morning and say, I'm going to switch to a short putter. If he doesn't switch to a short putter, I like him, though his accuracy isn't that great, so I might not go with that. I might lean towards more Johnson Wagner, but I think Stuart Sink is a guy who, in this range, that I might like the most. He's never played this course before, but in 3 tournaments he has an average finishing position of 27th, so that's one of the better ones in this field. So I might be leaning more towards him.
All right, Brian. Anybody in here that hits your eye this week?
Yeah, still just not really excited about those guys in the low 8K range. Smiley Kaufman at 7.9K is the first one that piques my interest around that neighborhood. It's his first time playing here. He's got really good stats for the course, and he had that win a couple weeks ago. 54th at the Sanderson last week, but
yeah, he was coming off a win, and at that quality event like the Sanderson Farms, I doubt he was putting his full faith and effort into it. If you want to just kind of write that one off.
Yeah, so I write that one off as well, and I like him at 7.9K. I think he's kind of where I'm going to start a lot of my lineups.
That tournament that he won, I think he shot like a 10 under on Sunday, and he was in the clubhouse for like 2.5 hours, which has to be an awful feeling. You're going for your first PGA Tour win in one of your first starts. That might have been his... Was that his first tour? No, it wasn't. He played at thefries.com. But anyway... in the clubhouse for like 2.5 hours with a lead has got to be one of the more brutal sweats that there is, kind of akin to maybe holding on to a golf DFS tournament victory over 4 days. But
he should have been watching the Rugby World Cup. He would have forgotten all about it.
There's I wonder if he has a rooting interest. You should ask him, Gibb. Send him a tweet or something.
I'm sure he replied to me today. But
any thoughts for you on Kaufman or anybody else kind of around there, Gibb?
I like Kaufman. Funny thing, you mentioned about him having to wait so long. Peter, I want to call him Peter Malak, but that must mean that I watched too much Hunger Games. But Peter, was it Malati?
Malnati?
Yeah. Did you see what he was doing when he was waiting?
He was doing chin-ups.
Chin-ups, yeah. I was thinking, why? Why would you do chin-ups?
He was preparing for a playoff by doing chin-ups in the clubhouse.
I felt like he was that awkward guy who didn't know what to do when a camera's on him. Oh, I know, I'll do chin-ups. Yeah, I couldn't understand. Apparently, from a couple of years ago, they did a sort of a PGA profile on him, and apparently he's a really likable person, so maybe he just doesn't really do well in the public eye, so he was a bit nervous. But to get back on track, I have a Devo favorite that I like a lot, and that's the Kokrak.
Oh, wow. It's been a while since we talked about him on air.
Yeah. He hasn't had... I mean, he started off the year in very fine form. He pretty much bombed it in the Fries and got DQ'd for signing the wrong scorecard. Then he broke a 14-game or 14-event non-45, top 45 streak at the Shriners, then came 12th at the Sanderson Farms. Came 16th last year, and so he's trending in the right direction, and maybe all you need sometimes is a spark, and so maybe that might be something that, can propel him forward. So I do like him there. And Smiley Kaufman and Spencer Levine are the other two people in that range that I do like.
The thing that worries me about Kokrak is he's kind of a bomber, isn't he? I don't have his driving distance in front of me, but I think he's generally a big hitter, not as accurate, but hot golf is hot golf, and he shot a 64 on Monday there in the final round at the Sanderson Farms, and he has a reputation, like you said, Gibb, of kind of being a streaky golfer. Could be an interesting play this week for sure, especially since our options are a little bit limited when we get to this range. Brian, is this kind of where you look to pick out maybe those bunters that you talked about earlier, guys that maybe don't have the sexiest driving stats, but they're going to keep it in the fairway and hit the greens and make some putts?
Yeah, definitely. And Brendan Todd obviously pings my radar. It's your quintessential bunter, as we brought him up in the beginning of the show. I worry about his form and his course history, though. He's got a 49th and a cut here, and he's in pretty bad form.
Yeah.
So it's kind of strange to me because it should be good for him, but it hasn't been in his 2 tries here. And, it's important to note that this is a shorter field, too. There's only 132 runners in this field, and there has been historically. So, if you're finishing like 49th, it's not nearly as impressive as when there's 170 people in the field. So, yeah, that has me worried a bit.
Yeah, this would seem like the course where you'd think he'd have excelled in the past, but obviously he hasn't. I don't know, Gibb, what are your thoughts on Brendan Todd these days?
I just had a chuckle because quintessential bunter, I look at Furyk as a quintessential bunter, and maybe even McDowell as well. So no, yeah.
Todd doesn't hit it very far. Todd's a weak hitter in terms of distance.
Yeah, and so I totally agree with everything Devo says, and his form. I mean, he smoked it at the Fries, and I was all over him from the Shriners. He was coming 6th, either 4th or 6th at the Shriners, and then just went downhill from there. So, didn't he miss the cut at the Sanderson Farms?
He did.
Yeah.
Yes. So he missed the cut at Sanderson Farms. I mean, he didn't withdraw. He didn't shoot a 4-under like Will Wilcox and said, you know what? I don't like the rain. I don't like the weather. I'm just going to get out of here. He played 2 rounds and still couldn't do it.
He missed the cut by 3 shots.
Yeah, so that's nerves right there for me. And I've been a pretty big. My biggest win in DFS came because I had Brendan Todd in my lineup. So I am a big Todd supporter. And I don't particularly like him that much, so I'm not really going to rust him at all.
I'll play the home course card this week. Give me Carlos Ortiz at 7,500. He's of course from Mexico, and he's only got 1 top 10 in his PGA Tour career, and of course it was here last year. So guys tend to maybe get up for their home course events a little bit. And certainly that couldn't hurt him. He's another big hitter as well, so a guy that maybe doesn't fit this course the best, but he's got a top 10 here, and he's from Mexico. So if you're looking for kind of an under-the-radar play, that $7,500 price tag, give me some Carlos Ortiz this week. Or, of course, Andres Romero's there as well, Gibb, if you want to play the broken hand card a little bit.
There's also Oscar Frenet. I don't do well with some of these names. Frenestro, he came 9th last year too, and he's Mexican. So, and he's at 6'5". So if we want to play the home field advantage, he has played more tournaments here than Carlos Ortiz. So both of them haven't. I mean, Oscar hasn't done anything this year. Hasn't played any tournaments for the PGA Tour or worldwide, for that matter. So. But he has played this course 3 times and made 2 cuts here and a top 10 last year. So he could be another Mexican who performs well again this year.
All right, we haven't really gotten to a guy that I think might be the best value on the board this week. Brian, any ideas on who that may be?
Sean Stefani.
Close, but no. You got him on your list. He's right there.
Jerry Kelly.
I like Jerry Kelly this week. Hard to not like him, I think, at that price.
I got burnt by Kelly. I had the option between Stuart Sink and Jerry Kelly for the CIMB Classic, and I was literally clicking between the 2 of them. And I think I just played it because they were both priced identically. And so I was just clicking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then whatever I stopped, I clicked submit because I felt both of them were right there. Kelly went down and Sink went up, and I was like, damn it.
This is his type of course, though. It's not long. He doesn't hit it very far either. He's got a 5th place finish here. I don't know. He's old, but I kind of like Jerry Kelly this week.
Can we just play them both?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. But you know what? Some of the straightest hitters you'll see in a golf course are generally the older ones who just know just to put it down the fairway and just roll it along, and they end up making par. So, and I'm talking about...
Here's the problem, though. I mean, Stephanie's been awful for months, and he got cut at the Fry's, he got 62nd at the Shriners, and he missed the cut by 8 strokes last week at the Sanderson Farms. I mean, he shot 4 over par in a tournament that yielded like a 20 under winning score. That's the only thing that worries me about Stephanie. I mean, he's a tremendous talent, and he had a really good run kind of around this time of the year last year. In fact, where did he finish here? I think
second here last year.
Yeah, he was second here last year. So the only thing that worries me with him would be the same thing that you were worried about with Brendan Todd, would be that current form is pretty bad. And I know Kelly hasn't had the greatest form either. He was near the bottom of the field last week. So when you get to guys down here, I mean, you got to take a chance on somebody, and certainly those are guys that have the potential to do well, I think, this week, given their course history or kind of the way they set up for this event. Anybody else in there, Gibb? Any other 7K-ish guys? We can go anywhere now. We're almost through. You can go to any kind of sleepers you got this week. Then I'll let Brian run through his.
People who have played with Jason Bone this year, after the second round, 54th, 39th, 5th, 5th, 8th, 40th. That's just second round totals. That's not that bad in my mind. And they've gone on to do some impressive finishes out of those bunch. Reason why I'm getting into it, Scott Stallings. Suspended for X amount of months for PEDs. He was on a 2-year exemption after his win at the Farmers Insurance. That is running up, and he has some motivation to play some good golf. Missed the cut at the Fry's. Shriners was 16th, and then the Sanderson Farm was 28th. So I'm not really, so what, Sanderson Farm. But he does have some motivation to play well and sort of get. I mean, his free run is basically running out, so he has to start playing golf for real in order to keep his PGA Tour card. So why not take advantage of some of these low strength of field tournaments? So I tend to sort of think that he might have a chance to do well here. He hasn't made the cut here in his 2 tries, so that does scare me a little bit. But that and maybe a KJ Choi. Go back to Old Faithful's KJ Choi. He's always a solid golfer. So those two have pinged my radar. And also Hudson Swatford is another one.
Oh, yeah, we got to mention him. We just can't make it through a show without just coming back to Hudson Swafford.
Yeah, so those 3 in that sort of price range in the 7,000, low 7,000s, those are the guys who I might.
Has Choi played here before?
Choi has played here once before, and he came 20th in 2010.
Fair enough. Any sleepers for you, Brian, that we haven't mentioned yet?
Kyle Stanley again at 6.9K. He's been on a pretty nice form streak, although he was cut at Sanderson's Farm last week. He's got a 60th, a 13th, and a cut here.
DraftKings has totally just penalized anyone. If you got cut at the Sanderson Farms, you're getting shoved down to this low tier here. We don't care who you are.
But the inverse of that is if you do really well, you get shot up the radar.
Yeah.
And then Pat Perez again at 6.6K. I know, but he's cheap and he's got good stats. And he's got a 69th and a 16th and a 13th here. What I'm most interested in is this new influx of Web.com guys. Like they've made a lot of waves already, but I just don't have enough information on them. A few guys that I've noticed are Thomas Aiken, John Ram, and Tyler Aldridge. I don't know anything about their stats. You guys got any information on these new rookies coming on tour?
Rambo. That's Arizona State. John Ram, his nickname is Rambo. Did pretty well at the waste management tournament. I think he came 5th. That's where the whole 5th place stat kicked off for me. Was
the origins.
Yes, it was Rambo. It was my first blood in that stat. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good talent, but I'm not on him this week. Are we going down further?
Yeah, go ahead. You can throw anybody's name out there.
Two staples. Back 2 years ago, Bryce Garnett was my go-to sleeper pick. And then last year, Mark Hubbard around this time was my other go-to sleeper pick. And both of them seem like great options this week, so I do like them a lot. They've had some pretty strong finishes. Well, Bryce Garnett came top 10 last week, and he was top 10 last year at this event. So he's definitely a guy in which does send some intrigue my way. Also, just on a side note, he was the very first PGA Tour player to ever favorite a tweet of mine. So much love for Bryce Garnett on that respect. But get further down, as I mentioned, Oscar Frenestro is a Mexican-born player who did a top 10 last year at this event. And two other players, Michael Kim, he's a rookie this year as well. He's made the cut in 3 straight PGA Tour events, as well as Tyler Aldridge at 6K.
Yeah, Aldridge is one of the guys that Brian mentioned there at 6K. That seems interesting because he has made all 3 cuts that he's played on the PGA Tour: 55th at the Fry's, 43rd at the Shriners, 12th at the Sanderson Farms. One of those decent finishers there that didn't get jumped up the salary ranks. Obviously, the 3 improving finishes in a row is a positive sign, and he's maybe the guy, I think, based on that price this week, of the 3 that Brian mentioned, that would probably interest me the most.
Devo probably didn't have his laptop on the charger.
Oh, did he duck out? Yeah. Oh, that's okay. We're almost out anyway, so we'll find him later for ducking out early. I think that's about it, Gibb. We're straight up at the top of the hour here, so anything else for the good of the people?
And since I did this research, I'm just going to say I went to the Boise Open last year, went and watched a couple of groups go around. One of them was D.H. Lee. Very negative player. I mean, when he's not playing, he's dropping F-bombs. I think he broke the record for most F-bombs in a round after 9 holes. That's according to the person walking with him. Funny stat is I look through everyone he's been paired with this year, all of them have missed the cut. Every single person that he's been paired with has missed the cut. So if you're looking at a player that might be paired up with D.H. Lee, you might not want to take him because he's a bit of a prick.
All right, that's a nice note. On that note, I'll make sure I don't roster anybody that's playing with D.H. Lee this week. All right, that'll do it for this week's show. For the departed Brian Devonshire and the still present Gibb Pollard, I'm Justin, and we'll see you next week. We got one more show. Then, of course, they're taking a week off, the Thanksgiving week. There is no tournament. And then pretty quiet in December until we hit January with the tournaments out there in Hawaii. So we'll be back with you next week, and then a break after that. As always, thanks for checking out the show. Good luck to everybody. If you're in New York, condolences. We'll try to get DFS, legal everywhere. Obviously, that's the goal. So everybody working together is great to see, and hopefully we'll see some positive news on that front. So take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.